came in there and it hadn't been this old. Where is the old, what was that before liquid?
Okay, your first question on the gas coming in, we don't have an answer for that right now. All we can do is work on it. In terms of the pressure of the brine, the reason we've got brine type water quality clear up in the aquifer, the pressure in the brine got so much, essentially you had a frack out of the brine going all the way to the surface. That's why we've got a fracture and collapse zone all the way to the surface.
This was through the salt dome itself?
The best we can tell, and we won't know until we image it, it went up right on the side of the salt dome because that's where the rocks in formation are the weakest. So the best we can tell, when the pressure got enough, it followed the edge of the salt dome right up to the surface.
So how did that material collect in the bottom of there if it didn't displace the brine and the other liquid that was in the cavern?
Okay, the rocks coming down were increasing the pressure in the brine until the frack out. Once the frack out happened, the pressure in the brine dropped and the material, the rocks and stuff outside the cavern came in and filled up the bottom.
So the frack out occurred on the walls of the cavern, into the salt dome, and out the side of the salt dome? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So the wall, the integrity of the salt dome wall has been resolved.
Yes, sir.
He's asking, is the integrity of the outer edge of the salt dome has been breached?
Yeah, the outer edge of the salt dome, best we can tell, it's gone.
Yes, sir, this gentleman has his hand up next.
At the location of the cavern.
At the location of the cavern.
I wanted to ask or make a particular statement. You're a geologist, is that correct?
That's correct.
How long have you been a geologist?
35 years.
Would you say a percentage of this is an educated guess relative to what has happened down there? And until such time you can get the seismic work done to give you better eyesight into what did happen down there, it is percentage educated guess.
I would agree with that.
Yes, sir, why?
You said that the gas and oil came out the same pathway into the aquifer? They did?
Yeah.
Why wasn't there oil in the bayou?
Pardon?
You said the
Oh,
gas.
why isn't there oil in the bayou?
Right, if they came out the same pathway, it seems like they had oil in the bayou.
Yeah, the main reason is gas moves through an aquifer like we've got out here, sand and gravel, much faster and much further, because oil doesn't want to move through the pore spaces, but gas can move through the pore spaces very fast. I would imagine from the time gas came up the fracture zone until it comes up in the bayou, your travel times were probably measured in a few days or something like that. Whereas to get crude oil to move through that, you're talking months to years to move it that far.
So if it took months to years, why was there oil in that sinkhole?
Because during the frack out, huge pressures were involved and the gas and oil came up together, okay, into the sinkhole. And that's how the oil got from below, because you've got a lot of gas drive pressure pushing it up.
What if you did find the oil coming out of the bubbles? Very little, not a lot, but very little. Then what? What would that tell you?
That tells me the oil has moved over to where it's coming out with the bubbles. I mean, we've got oil in the reservoirs, we've got gas in the reservoirs, and we know we've got gas coming up, and the fact that some oil is coming with it would be consistent with what we think is going on.
So that would be a worse predicament?
Yeah. Now, the one thing I will tell you on oil, fortunately, we're monitoring the geoprobes and everything else. We've monitored the water quality in the water supply wells. We've monitored water quality in the bubble locations. We have found no indication of oil-based hydrocarbons. What we're seeing is almost all methane gas and no hydrocarbons indicative of crude oil that are in the water.
I was told someone seen some oil coming out of bubbles.
Okay. is the numbers I've seen. People may have seen some stuff, whether it's from this or something else, I can't answer that.
Yes, sir.
The bubbles appeared in the bayou about 2 months before the sinkhole formed. So what's the theory as to the conduit to the surface before the sinkhole?
What was going on, I think people start feeling earthquakes and then the bubbles appeared, right? Do I have that timing down?
No, bubbles first.
The bubbles were first and then the earthquakes? Okay. What was going on? There were fractures developing related to this weak rock and material that wanted to go inside the cavern. So cracks were opening up, the gas is coming up, and you're seeing the gas. Because the gas will come up, it'll collect against the clay that we talked about, and it's going to move out horizontally and show up in the bayous. And the reason it shows up in the bayous is because the bayous tend to have much deeper sand pockets down into the clay than we do like right in here. So the gas showed up, people start feeling earthquakes. What the earthquakes were was the rocks outside starting to shift around and move. That's basically what an earthquake is, it's rocks moving. And they put in the seismographs a few days before the sinkhole appeared. And so all the earthquakes were related to the rock shifting, and then we are pretty sure what happened the day the sinkhole appeared. Everything started moving fairly fast. The pressure increased in the brine like we talked about, and the frack out happened because right after that event where they had many, many earthquakes in the period of a few hours, everything quit. And the sharp seismic events stopped, and we think that's when the frack out occurred. So the earthquakes beforehand were related to the rocks moving. The fact that you saw bubbles before that means fractures are opening up, and there were probably what they call microseismic earthquakes, you just couldn't feel them. So the rocks were opening up, the gas was coming up, so the gas was their early warning something was going on. Then you felt the earthquakes, and then the sinkhole developed when we think the frack out occurred and the cavern filled full of material.
The majority of the bubbles are located to the south of the sinkhole, right? And on your bottom of plate contour, you showed 2 high spots south in that area. What are the plans to install geoprobe or vent wells in the smoke area to vent the aquifer in that area?
I don't have an answer for that right now. We're still working on the problem. That's obvious, something we're looking at. I don't have an answer for you right now.
And has any thought been given to directional drill through the salt to the bottom of the cavern to determine if the earth fill actually made it to the bottom of the cavern, or there's an oil space under the salt pieces that fell?
I don't believe we've looked at that, no. Right now, the fill in the cavern, in all honesty, is not a huge concern for me because I know what we're dealing with on the side of the salt dome and what we're dealing with up on the surface. The fill in the cavern is kind of, that's what happened, but now we've got to deal with the consequence of that. So that's where our efforts are focused.
David?
A few questions. Can you briefly explain what a frack out is? What's the difference between the frack out and the breach that allows the burden?
The question is, he wants to be explained what is a frack out that's being discussed.
A frack out is basically, in the oil field, you've heard of hydraulic fracturing. That's what they're using to develop gas and oil wells around the country. We've used hydraulic fracturing in my business for years, for as long as I've been in it. What a frack out is when you get the pressure too high and your fracture, instead of just propagating where you want, it fractures all the way to the surface. And so it's caused by excess pressure and it fractures all the way to the surface. We think that's what's happening here. That's why we've got the sinkhole.
So are you saying that first there was a breach in the sidewall that pushed dirt in, that raised the pressure of the brine that caused the frack out?
Yeah, but that whole thing from the seismograph data we've got probably occurred in the matter of minutes. Because when you get a frack out, once you reach that critical pressure, it fractures pretty fast.
One more, then we'll get some of the residents.
In showing that the cavern was close to the edge of the zone, your judgment, was the cavern too close to the edge of the zone?
I can't speak to that kind of stuff right now. I'm dealing with the situation.
Yes, sir.
How thick, was the salt between the cavern and the edge of the dome to, y'all seem to have the answers to everything else. Do you know how thick a wall that was?
Well, first of all, I can assure you I don't have all the answers to a lot of stuff. I don't know how thick the salt was.
Okay, well, obviously it wasn't thick enough. And are there any others close to the edge, any other caverns that close to the edge of the dome like this?
Not that I'm aware of. We've mapped out all the other caverns in the Napoleonville Salt Dome, and they seem to be well back from the edge.
Yes, sir.